Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel, or if it's your very first time here, welcome on in. I am of course back with another monthly plan with me. This one is unfortunately going up a lot later than I would have liked. I had finished the entire editing process for this video, but unfortunately it's just been very chaotic and very noisy in our neighborhood. There's been building construction and neighbors moving out. So I just have not had a quiet hour to just sit down and record a voiceover. But it is Sunday afternoon, I have the place to myself, so we are just going to knock this out. This monthly setup was actually pretty doodle heavy, which is kind of refreshing because June was very much like mixed media based, a lot of ephemera going on, a lot of like 3D parts. So it was nice to kind of just break out my pencil and doodle some sea creatures. This month's theme is kind of a mix of a bunch of different ideas that I've been wanting to incorporate into my journal for some time. I am not at all inspired by the summertime and ocean and like the heat. Like, this is probably my least No, not probably. It is my least favorite time of the year. So in order to combat that lack of creativity, I have to kind of come up with creative ways to make something a little bit more interesting. I've gotten so many requests to do some kind of underwater, beach, ocean theme for quite a long time, and I've never done it before for reasons as I've stated previously, but I thought it would be so cool to just make it more of like a spooky deep sea creature, like abandoned underwater city kind of vibe. So this was just much more my speed. Another idea that I was kind of having in the back of my head while I was putting this together was pirates. I've been wanting to redo my pirate theme from 2020 for so long. However, my like fantasy map theme in April kind of had similar vibes to what I was initially thinking of doing for like a solo pirate theme, so I decided to do something a little bit different because I felt like it was kind of too close together, like, oh, I just did something very similar in April. But trust me, I will definitely still be doing a pirate theme at some point, just probably not anytime within the next few months. So to create the drawings of these various sea creatures, I have this like gray toned paper that I got from like an ephemera bundle from Amazon not too long ago, and I just really loved the gray tone and how it looked with the black and the very like teal colored photos that I chose for this setup. Unfortunately, the bundle only came with 3 of those gray toned pieces of paper, so I had to try to find something that looked relatively similar for a future page. But I honestly really love the color palette of this monthly setup. I kept it to just white, gray, teal, and black, of course. I actually broke out my micron pens for the first time in a very, very long time, and I forgot how much I love microns for just doing straight up just like black outline sketching. These pens are just so much fun to use for that. For all of the creature outlines, I just stuck to using micron in the tip size, I believe, 2. I didn't really want it to be super thick, but I also didn't want to sit there for hours just outlining with like the super thin one. So I felt like 2 was just a happy medium in between the different sizes. After I finished outlining the jellyfish with a micron pen, I went in with the Sakura jelly roll just to blend out the rest of the creature into the remainder of the page, if that makes sense. This is just one of my favorite techniques to do, especially in this black page bullet journal. This technique is just also a really great workaround if you like run out of paper like I did, or if you just don't want to cut out very complicated shapes, because jellyfish obviously have those very thin wisps that come from their head, and I didn't want to sit there and cut out those very intricate shapes, so I just drew a few with the micron pen and then drew the rest with the Sakura white jelly roll, and also continued some of the wisps that I had originally drawn with the micron in the white jelly roll just to add some contrast, some layering, and it looks so beautiful. I honestly think layering in general is just one of my favorite techniques to employ for any kind of journaling, whether that's with pens or paper or stickers. I feel like it's also just a great way to kind of cover up mistakes, make something look intentional when it wasn't meant to be that way in the first place. But in this case, I feel like it just makes the jellyfish look like it's kind of moving through the page. And then after I finished adding the wisps to the jellyfish, I just added some bubbles in the very same like loose and sketchy drawing style. Because I wanted the doodles to be the like standouts for this month's setup, I really kept the extra decor to a minimum. Like I only used one washi tape and then very few pens. In addition to the bubbles, I decided to go in with my silver Uniball Signo pen just to draw out some silver stars and add a little bit of something extra to the pages. But as far as all the extra bits, washi tape stickers, stuff like that, I kept it relatively simple because I wanted the creatures to be the stars of the show. For this secondary cover page, I decided to draw a stingray. Stingrays are one of my favorite animals ever, next to elephants, so I knew I definitely had to sketch one out for this setup. And again, I used the exact same micron pen that I used for the jellyfish and just outlined it in the same sketchy style. Before finishing that secondary page, I kept looking over to the cover page and felt like it was missing a little something, so I decided to frame the spread a little bit more by adding some white drips, and I feel like this looks so cool. I am so used to doing just black drips, but obviously because it's black paper I can't exactly do that, and I feel like the white just stands out so well against all the other colors in this setup, so I continue to do the white drips for the rest of the pages. Moving back to the other page, this doodle idea was honestly so random, but I kind of just wanted to draw a Gothic window and add that extra illusion of like abandoned ruins. I don't know. I honestly just couldn't figure out what to put in this area because I was running out of that gray toned paper that I've been using for the creatures so far, and I didn't want to use another one for the same page, so I just felt like drawing a Gothic window. It is so incredibly uneven, but if you squint, it doesn't look that way, so you just gotta squint once I finish this window, and it looks great. Next up, I just used a few stickers that are currently available in my shop. I used the Cozy Definitions mini sticker sheet, the Cozy Phrases sticker sheet in the transparent matte sticker paper, and the Gothic washi tape sticker sheet. Naturally, I had to continue the white drips to the other side of the page. I was wondering if I wanted to like add some loose drips throughout the page, but as you could see, I didn't like that, so I do end up covering that up with a black pen. Again, I feel like I say it anytime I mess up throughout this bullet journal, but one of the best parts about using a black page bullet journal is that it is incredibly easy to cover up mistakes. So you can essentially use pretty much any black pen or marker and it's like nothing happened. But to cover up the mistake further, I just added in a quote, and then I also added a quote at the very bottom of the page that continues throughout both pages, and that is pretty much the completed cover spread. Moving on to the next page, I was debating on what to call this page because I didn't really feel like calling it a to-do list because it was going to be more than a to-do list, and I didn't really like brain dump because it wasn't really going to be a brain dump, so I just settled on July at a glance, which honestly I don't really like that much either, but that's okay. This page essentially will have like my monthly to-do list, a book tracker, and then I also decided to add in this cool envelope that I've used for previous spreads before, and it'll essentially be a place where I can store like any ephemera that I get throughout the month, whether that's a receipt from someplace we order takeout from, or a tea bag, like, I don't know, just kind of anything that I pick up throughout the month. I thought it'd be fun to kind of collect in that envelope, almost as if I found like hidden treasure in this underwater abandoned ruin thing. I don't know. Again, I had no idea what to call this spread. I might change it if I come up with something better. But for now, it's just July at a glance. Alrighty, moving on to the next creature doodle. I, of course, needed to draw a Kraken. Well, it's not going to be the entire Kraken, it's just going to be its tentacles because, again, this is the remainder of the gray-toned paper that I have left, and I do not want to waste it at all. So I just decided to draw 2 Kraken tentacles and then use them on 2 different pages as a little extra decor. Again, Kraken is just one of my favorite creatures, myth or not. I think they are so cool. That might be because I play a lot of Sea of Thieves though. But it was just a must for this monthly setup. Alrighty, so at some point I do remove this secondary tentacle because at the time of pasting it in, I didn't realize I wanted to do the whole envelope situation. So after I outlined it and figured out what I wanted to do, I end up removing this tentacle just to use for another page. And then I do adjust the positioning of the other tentacle just to fit the envelope better. Alrighty, with that page pretty much done, I do end up going back in just to add those bubbles and silver stars. But for now, I am working on the favorites page. This page was a little bit chaotic to create. As you could see, I decided to draw a much larger Kraken tentacle. I was originally wanting this to be like a Dutch store situation that I might have used for the mood tracker, but I don't know, I think it was just like how the tentacle was positioned. It just didn't really leave much room or much extra room for the calendars. I would have only been able to fit 2 of the calendars I normally use in my monthly setups. And then I also repeated this same tentacle pattern on the opposite side of the page, but it looked so bad. I was not a fan with how it turned out. It was just super uneven, and I didn't really just follow the same outline as well as I did for this one, so I totally got rid of the Dutch door idea, but I still wanted this Kraken tentacle to stand out a lot more than it currently is. So I decided to grab that same wide text washi tape that I used in previous pages, and I essentially covered the entire back page with it and then pasted the Kraken tentacle onto it. So again, as if like the other tentacle just never happened. You can kind of see it peeking through in this clip, but I just wasn't a fan of it and my original idea didn't pan out. So I went with my secondary idea, which was just turning this into a favorites page. I actually used this exact same technique for my March mood tracker, which was like the moths inspired theme. And honestly, I think it's one of my favorite ways to just both add a little bit something extra to my journals, but also to fix mistakes. To finish up this page, I decided to use a scrap piece of the black paper that I cut out to create the Kraken tentacle, just to write out favorites. And yeah, that is pretty much it for this spread. Again, I wanted the tentacle to kind of be the main focal point, but also because this is the favorites page, I figured it was going to be already kind of chaotic once I start adding things in. But yeah, I am really glad that I scrapped my original idea because I love how this page turned out. Moving on to the final spread for this monthly setup, we are starting off with the habit tracker. Again, I kept everything relatively simple. I did use the secondary tentacle that I doodled earlier for this page, and then I just used 3 calendars for the habits themselves. These are the same calendars that I use literally every single month. And I'm pretty sure I've said it before, but the reason why I do this is because my spreads already take such a long time. And if there's some way that I can make my life a little bit easier, it's definitely with pre-made calendars. These calendars are from Planned by Jyla. I always link her shop in the description, so please feel free to check out her shop. She sells a bunch of cozy stationery, very mindful stationery. And she is also just a lovely human being. So please go show her some love. But yes, I use these calendars for literally every habit tracker, and it is such a lifesaver. It saves me so much time. But I just continued adding in some little washi tape bits, and then I went in with the Sakura white jelly roll to add in the title for the page. And then I also used this pen to number all of the calendars, which is something I've actually never done before, but I'm glad I did it this time around because it honestly looks really cool. I wasn't entirely sure how the white pen was going to show up on this relatively light craft paper, but it turned out so good, so I definitely see myself using this same technique for a future monthly setup. Alright friends, we have reached the final page for this monthly setup, and I don't know what it is about the mood trackers this year, but they are just on another level of creativity, and I absolutely love that for me. So as I mentioned earlier, I did end up running out of the gray toned paper, so I had to scour through my ephemera bin to try to find a paper that kind of matched. I didn't really find anything super gray, but I felt like this white was just off white enough to kind of pass for gray from far away. Which was actually perfect because I really wanted to draw another jellyfish, and I decided to do so for the mood tracker. But of course it had to be on a much larger scale to account for the 31 days in July. So I sketched out this jellyfish and then added in almost kind of like a mosaic pattern on the inside, and then pasted it in, outlined it with the same micron pen that I've been doing for all of my drawings for this setup, and then went in with the Sakura white jelly roll to add in those very wispy pieces. And it just looks so cool. Like, there's just something about working in this Starry Night bullet journal from Scribbles That Matter that has just made my creativity just flourish so much this year. I honestly don't know how I'm going to go back to just using a quote-unquote normal bullet journal. I mean, I have no idea what my plan is for 2025, but I gotta start thinking about it because we're already past the halfway point of this year. But yeah, I had so much fun creating this mood tracker, and all the mood trackers so far this year have just been a total blast. Finishing off the page with those same very rough bubbles and silver stars, I then numbered all of the blobs within the jellyfish itself, and then pasted in a key once all of that was done. I decided to use colored pencils as the fill-in tool for this mood tracker. Again, I wanted to continue that very sketchy art style that I've used throughout this setup, and I felt like the colored pencils on top of this somewhat textured jellyfish would give me the look that I was going for. So I browsed through my Faber-Castell Polychromos colored pencils, which I haven't used in ages, and I found a few colors that matched pretty well with the overall color palette for this theme. Much like the other mood trackers from previous months, I am very much looking forward to seeing this little jellyfish all colored in, all filled out. To be honest, creating mood trackers in previous years has always been kind of my least favorite part of, you know, a monthly setup, but this year has definitely changed my perspective on it. I just feel so free. I am just having such a fun time creating mood trackers this year. I just feel like my brain is in such a healthier mindset when it comes to bullet journaling, and I honestly have this black page journal to thank for that. Without further ado, here is the final flip through of my July monthly setup, inspired by underwater deep sea creatures, abandoned spookiness. I really hope you enjoyed. I am glad that I was finally able to do some kind of ocean summer theme in my way, of course. Let me know what you think of this monthly setup, and if you have any plans for the summer. My husband and I and some friends are actually going to Anime Expo in a few days for the 3rd year in a row, and I am very much excited to spend all of my hard-earned YouTube money at Artist Alley, because small businesses gotta support each other. Thanks so much for watching, friends, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!